Hi, I'm Cortavius doing a Fire Knight Hard 10 takeover here, and it's not about the Fire Knight itself. What I'm going to show is if you have champs and you have gear, but you trying to beat certain content, how do you find a team that works? And then how do you build that team to beat that content? So it's more about how you use really Hell Hades' incredible tool, the optimizer, to find a team that can work. So it's not about the Fire Knight Hard 10. It's about how do you build teams through using the optimizer. That's what I want to bring to life here. So let's get into it. So I'm on somebody else's account here. I'm on DNice 120's account, member of our OBV clan and cluster. He has a great account. I mean, he's got 21.1 million player power. He's got some bunch of well-built champs. He's got some great gear. So he certainly can build a fast Fire Knight Hard 10 team. But as I said, that's not the real objective of this video. The objective is he's struggling to get to a Fire Knight team that works, that works fast. He's tried a couple and they're not fully successful. So what we're going to endeavor in this one is to go find a team that we can do that. So how do you do that? You know you got champs, you know you've got gear. How do you find a team? So let's hide the game. Let's go into the optimizer, and what we can do is we go to Team Optimizer, and we can, hold on, sorry, moving screens. We can say, all right, we want Fire Knight Hard Stage 10. What do we got? So we'll go find teams. And then what we'll do is we'll look through this and say, okay, do the champs that are here, are they champs that he has built or can build? And then I will look at the speeds and builds of those teams and say, do I think it's a team that he can realistically build? For example, the fastest teams, he can build a 54-second Fire Knight team that has 1,200 battles on it. It's only 95%, but that's probably because there's multiple team variations in here. So there's probably some that are good. So the first thing I'll probably do is I'll come in here and say, over to the left side and say, well, I want a success rate of say 100% probably, but I'll go 90. I'll go 98% just in case. And let's apply the filter. All right, so I'm only getting, this one's 99.68%. I'll figure that's pretty good. But he doesn't have Lanathril or Genzen booked. And he has 6 books. So we're not booking them tonight. So I can come in here and say, well, I know I don't want to use Lanathril. And I can come down here and say, actually give me exclude lock champs, give me 6-star ascended only. But if they're booked, he can use them. So I'm going to skip Lanathril, and I'm going to skip Genzen and say, hey, those are 2 champs that I know you're suggesting, but he can't use. All right. So now I'm teams that are 99% success rate. I've excluded 2 champs that he can't use. And we look at these and say, well, Georgiad's in here, but it's only been run 3 times. That's not too compelling. I do have a Foley team. All of these champs are built for him. So this is a team we could do. Coldheart's only got 6 battles, not too exciting. There is a team here with Zenogre, Kaimar. These are champs that he has, all built, all maxed. So that's a doable team. I do have a double Newt, double Mikage, Kaimar team. So there's different options here. The thought process that I'm looking through for us, as I said, forget this is Fire Knight Hard 10, forget these are great champs. That's not what we're trying to do here. The point is, we're looking at, are these champs that we could use in this content with the builds that are here? So for example, if I go to this team here and I say, he's got a Cardial, a Mikage, a Kaimar, a Newt, and a Blade Master. Those are all champs that are maxed. Those are all champs that are booked. So that would work for him. And then I look at these speeds and builds, and if you've paid for the lowest lowest premium option or paid option in the optimizer, I think it's like $7 a month or something, then you can actually see the builds themselves, which is really helpful in this scenario. Otherwise, if you don't see the speeds and builds, you would just be seeing these are champs that work, but I don't know if the builds are crazy or not. So in this case, I can come in here and say, all right, I have a 312 Cardial, a 350 speed Mikage, a 240 Kymar, 263, and a 314. And I can see that they have high crit damage. These are nuker builds on these two. They have Savage on 3 of the 4-5 champs. Are these builds that he can build? If they are, then I could use this comp and say this is a comp that I want to use. If I look at those speeds and builds and say that's just not possible, then I can come back here and actually go to a slower build. I can come back here to one of these slower teams and say, hey, these can do it in 2 minutes. These can do it in 2.5 minutes. And now you're getting champs like Neldor and Yakarl and Farakin and Newt and Kreela. And odds are you'll find, well, these are still pretty fast. I should probably find my team that I run in like 2.5 minutes on this board. So you can come down here and say, hey, double Farakin, Creedin, Newt. So you can find more reasonably built champs if you come down to slower builds that are here. So it's really what's your objective and what kind of gear and what can you get to. So don't pick the fastest teams if you realize that the speeds aren't ones that you can build. The farther down you come, the slower these teams are, and the easier the builds are going to be to get to. So if he didn't want to use that kind of speed gear on his champs, he could come down here and pick slower teams that would take less gear to go after, and not steal gear from his other champs. So there's a lot of choices and a lot of different champs he could use here that work. So coming back up in his case, though, he said he wants a fast team. So I'm going to go try and build a fast team. So that's step one, though, is you come in here and you decide what are these champs that I could put into this game mode. Do I have to change the builds I have on those champs? If I would want to change the build, if the builds would have to change for these teams to work, then, and you don't want to do that with your champs, then you'd have to exclude them like I did with Lanathro and Genzin, or pick a team that doesn't have the champs that you don't want to use, or change builds on, or get to a build that they have. So in this scenario, then we've now picked a team that has champs that he wants to use, which is Mikage, Cardial, Kymar, Newton, Zenogray are all champs he would use. We came in here and found a team that had a good number of battles with a good success rate, and I would say anything, 10 to 15 battles at least with a high success rate's good. I love that this one has 500 battles on it, but you don't need that many. But we know this team has a strong success rate. And then we came in and we looked at this and said, okay, how does this work compared to the speeds he has? And actually, his Mikage and his Cardial are this fast. So he's got some good champs and good accounts. His Kymar was too fast, though. So he's got like a 300 speed or something speed Kymar, which would mean that with the boss at 250 speed, it's going to go for the boss. So that's the other thing we'll look at here is why are these speeds built the way they are? And in this particular comp, I'll look at it and say, okay, he has Mikage go first, or she, whoever this comp came from, which will then use the ally attacks to work on the shield. And then actually, Zenogray goes next with her A1, so she's going to take 3 hits on the shield, and then Cardial goes. So I noticed that Zenogray is faster than Cardial for a reason, because when Cardial takes the shield down, Newt is the next slowest champ, so his A1 might actually take turn meter reduction on the boss before Kymar goes. So when you look at these teams here and you try and model them, you've got to look at those speeds and say, what is the comp trying to do for whatever content you're trying to beat? And those speeds orders can be important. And then I will look at what's the gear that they're in. So I have 3 Savage sets. Are those Savage sets needed because I need to do more damage? I might need to put them in Savage, or Lethal, could be used as well. Other damage-based Slayer, Merciless type sets that can do damage. But in this case, that reduction is important for the time I'm trying to get to if I want to take those waves down or boss down faster. and I will look at something like the accuracy. That's not enough accuracy for the Fire Knight with that Kaimar, but I don't need Kaimar in this fight to actually have accuracy because he's not using an ability that drives accuracy, so maybe I don't need that accuracy then, and I wouldn't put it in the stats so then I could get more damage. I will notice that Kaimar has 77% crit rate. Why does that make sense? Well, Cardiel has an ally attack that will actually add crit rate, so he'll get to 100% with Cardiel's 30% crit rate buff. So I could build him to 77% crit rate. Interestingly, he has Zenogre at 100%. So he did go through and say, hey, that way if Cardiel's skill isn't there on one of the waves, she can still hit. So choices you can make in the builds. As I said, these builds are, I couldn't build this team. These builds are crazy. But what I'm trying to walk through is the thought process of how do I evaluate whether this is a team I can build. I would be paying attention. If everybody here was in Relentless and it was a Hydra team I'm building, I'd have to ask myself, do I have the Relentless on that many champs? So do I have to have Savage or not is helpful. Now, if I didn't have Savage on the waves are probably just slower, but I could still beat them. But it might make a difference on the boss if that boss is going to get a turn if I don't take the boss down fast enough. I'll also notice, and I'll look at the blessings. In this case, there's 4 champs with Phantom Touch. Those are hits on the boss's shield. So the blessings might make a difference to the comp you're using. So I've got to pay attention to whether those Phantom Touches, if I'm counting, and they're also 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. So I've got 3 5-star awakened Phantom Touches. That's a 75% hit chance. So odds are with 3 of these doing 75%, I'm probably going to get at least 2 of them in a run. The run's 100%, so I can't imagine you need all 3 of those. Maybe you don't need any of them, but I had to pay attention to that to say, do those blessings matter in the team I'm building? An example is when I was building my Fire Knight team, there was a Yakarl in one of the comps. That Yakarl had a 6-star awakened blessing. I skipped that team and picked another one because I looked at that and said, if that team needs that 6-star awakened blessing, I don't have that on my Yakarl. That might make a difference in the comp working or not comping. So I picked one that looked like an easier set of blessings. So once again, I look at the speeds, I look at the gear, the stats, I look at the gear, and I look at the blessings. And I make sure all of those are things that I think I can build in a team that I'm trying to follow. So in this particular case, this is Fire Knight. This is a team, he doesn't have the Phantom Touch blessings at that level and on his champs. So I don't know for sure this is going to work, but he did agree, let's go after that and see if we can and see if the Phantom Touch hits make the difference. And also, like this Kaimar with 6,000 attack and 349 crit damage in Savage, he's not taking that gear off his nukers. So we're not going to get the same comps, the same attacks, I don't think. So I don't think we'll build these 2 champs as well. So we're going to go see, though, if building this would work. So how do I do that? The next thing I do is I go look at each of these champs and I say, I will screenshot this next, and I will go save that on my computer. So I have a screenshot of this, so I don't have to keep coming back to this. I will screenshot this exact page here so I can see the champs and I can see the builds. And then I will screenshot this. So when I go build my team and the team settings, I can reproduce this. So I grab all that from the optimizer while I'm here, so I don't have to come back to this page. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into champions and say, okay, let's go look at Cardiel. And is that the right Cardiel? So I have a 316 speed Cardiel. And you can't see it anymore because I took it off the screen, but that Cardiel was a 312 speed. And also, he has 20 extra speed in his area bonuses. So actually his Cardiel is going to be 336 speed. So Cardiel, good shape, fast. That's good. So we can use Cardiel as built. Mikage, he has a 338 speed Mikage or a 321, our pick. I got to be careful that Relentless, that could be good actually. So I think I could use either one of those Mikages. One's faster than the other, but that Relentless prop might be a good thing, and I don't think that would screw up the comp. I think if the Relentless procced, we're actually better off. So Mikage and Cardial are both fast enough to use, so we can use those in their existing builds. And then he had a Newt. The Newt in the comp we were following was 253 speed. He has Newts at 253 and 240, and he has 20 extra speed again, so we can use a 270 speed. I have to ask myself, is that a problem? Do I need to slow that Newt down? But actually having the Newt faster can't hurt me in this Fire Knot comp, so I can actually use the 270 speed Newt, and he's got 320 crit damage. So Newt, Mikage, and Cardial, I can actually use what I need. All right, I'm back. So we have Kaimar built. One thing I did learn, by the way, if you put glyphs into the optimizer, make sure you have the glyphs. So using someone else's account, I have a lot more glyphs than he does. So I probably would have put fewer speed glyphs in the optimized build because I did not get him to the speed I wanted. So with Fire Knight, he's only up to 236 out of the 240, I thought, because there weren't a lot of glyphs. So I would have put fewer glyphs, and the optimizer would have found a faster build than not using those glyphs. All right, so what we clearly learned is you have to follow the stats and you have to see what was in that team comp. And we did learn that, as we feared, the stats that we needed to get on the Kaimar, the Mikage, and the Cardial were all, I guess, harder to reach with his gear that he wanted to use versus what was in the comp we followed. And what that meant is we didn't do enough damage to the Fire Knight, so he was left with some health. And if he got a turn, he destroys the team. He has the gear, but wasn't, it's just, this is one dungeon. It wasn't worth taking his faster damage gear to put on these three champs that are used in this dungeon versus leaving those on his live arena and arena champs. So we pivoted and said, well, the core team still works, but we need more turn meter manipulation on the boss or more damage. So instead of putting Zinogre in there, we looked at it and said, well, if we can put a Newt in there, a second Newt, then we get more turn meter manipulation, which could help us keep the shield down. So let me show you one of these runs and I'll talk through how it works, and then I will come back to the builds of these in case someone's looking at this team itself. Remember, it was more about how do I use the optimizer and the team suggestions to find a team and build one. But for purposes of showing, putting a bow on how this takeover actually ended up getting to success. Wave 1's not a problem. There really isn't a threat here. So I've learned I might save more abilities on wave 1 even if it's slower, because if Riho takes a turn, she's a pain. A, she can kill, but B, she puts up a block debuffs, which can slow down this run too, and even cause a fail if she ends up taking out someone on the team. Or if one of these guys gets a turn, Timesius can take a turn and kill someone because Riho puts the block debuffs up. So I'm going to look at the team settings and see if that's something that maybe there's some movement we can make. But you can see that one went quite successful. And I do think it's the rare exception. But if Riho can take a turn, she can slow things down. But we get the double hits on the shield. And then that allows Newt there to be able to put some turn meter reduction in. We should get one more ally attack here, which will take the turn meter down. So once we get to the boss, this team is really successful. We do let the Newts take the Blessed Bash turns. Down goes the boss. So 1:29, that was actually a best time run. How about that? So it's fast for hard 10. He has a team he could do in less than a minute, but he'd have to use champs and gear he doesn't want. But for 90 seconds, that's a pretty fast run for Fire Knight 10. I guess I'll let him decide on that. So that's a pretty fast run. As I said, I do feel like there's a fail condition with that Riho in round 2. If she happens to take a turn, he happens to use his Soul Reaper on her and doesn't have available the boss, and he doesn't hit any of the Giant Slayers on the newts on the boss. So it's quite a rare fail condition, but I do think it's there. So I will take a look at the team settings. So let's take a look at team settings. What do we do on wave 1? So Cardiel does use Heavenly Host. Mikage does use her AoE. So we've got multiple AoEs. He doesn't use abilities. He uses nothing. He uses Fury of the King on round 1. Do we need that? We don't need that on round 3. So in round 2, we use nothing. We have to have that ability ready for round 3, so we can't use that in round 2. He does open with Fury of the King. Lady Mikage. She's going to open with Imperial Decree. So we don't use Silken Snare on round 3. We need to have Blessed Bash. I think we turn off that on round 2 and see if that solves the problem. We'll see how that works. Didn't change round 1. Alright, so round 2. I just wish they'd attack Riho here. Man, that would make this run could not fail if they would just attack Riho. But they leave her for the last champ. Frustratingly. Okay, there it is. She took a turn. Let's see if Mikage actually does something about it. Okay, so she actually took a turn and it still went okay. Slower, but at least it doesn't fail. Drop the turn meter. We should now get the ally attacks in. Turn meter down. Alright, this is running smooth. As we said, it can take slower there on that wave too, so it's good to capture this, that there is a slower bait capability in there. But even the slower runs, a minute 34, even with Rio taking that extra time. So it's looking pretty consistent to be in that 129 to 134 range. He does not need that. So it looks pretty successful. All right, so let me show you the team. What a champs, just for those that aren't following the process of how we got here, but actually are interested in this team itself. These were the teams we're using. So we have Lady Mikage. She is in speeds and perception sets. We used her base form, right? So this is the form that she would have been using in Fire Knight. So you can see 351 speed, the accuracy, good stats, and we actually did get some damage built into her, so she could do more damage to that Fire Knight and get him down to the fact that we could kill him off. And then she does have Brimstone. It doesn't matter because he doesn't take a turn, so Brimstone doesn't matter in this comp. She has no masteries. Didn't even know that. Cardiel, those are his masteries. He goes down to Unshakable to get some extra resistance. Laura Steele would give him some speed. We do have some counters and things, but he doesn't really ever use that because nobody really takes turns. He does have Miracle Heal, which is not really too helpful here because the boss in the Fire Knight doesn't take a turn to reduce the max HP. So it would be helpful if the boss was taking a turn, but he's not in this case. So some mixed sets here. And his total stats in Fire Knight, he is running 328 speed in Fire Knight, so with the extra 20. Some good defense, some good EHP stats, and then he doesn't need the resistance because the boss never takes a turn here, and he doesn't need accuracy. So speed's big here, but the rest of the build's actually pretty doable. Newt number 1 in some mixed sets, really, a little stone skin protection. He has 273 speed, including the bonus 20. Some nice crit damage in there, so he's built to hit. You don't need nearly that much crit damage, by the way, just to hit the max HP in this boss. I think it's only like 250 or something in crit damage. It's a lot lower. He does have 20% ignore defense, which is nice, though. Although I still think it goes back to the same max HP hit. You can't do more than the max HP hit, but you could have even less crit damage with those benefits. But this does help. The extra stats do help on the waves, though, for taking down the wave enemies. They will go faster. And skills, he has Brimstone, which really isn't useful here either. The other Newt masteries, did I show masteries on him? Yeah, I did. So Giant Slayer, Laura Steele, Cycle Magic. The other one has also Giant Slayer on him as well, some of the same masteries. He has Soul Reap, which is helpful. So Soul Reap is helpful because this is the Newt that will go at the last hit of the boss. So if he doesn't finish off the boss, that Soul Reap will finish the boss. That can make a difference in these runs. The ones I showed, it didn't matter because the Blessed Bash killed the boss. But if it didn't, that Soul Reap on him is helpful, even at 1 star. Artifacts, he's actually in Savage, which is nice, so he's doing more, easier to hit that max HP hit. And his stats, he's at 259 speed with the bonuses, which is faster than the boss, which is good. And 432 accuracy. You'll notice this one has the 430 accuracy. I believe the other one did not have enough accuracy. So he's only at 300 accuracy. So we only built one of the Newts with enough accuracy to do the turn meter reduction. We did notice this one will still do it occasionally, but it's not critical for the run to be successful. There's enough turn meter manipulation with one and a half Newts that we don't actually need this one. So we only put enough accuracy in the second one, and the comp worked. We said we'd come back and put more in if we needed to, but never needed to. And last one is Kaimar. His masteries, he's using more master. And then skills, he has no blessing. Artifacts, he's actually in a lethal set, so we did put some damage on this Kaimar to try and get that boss down. And 252 with crit damage, doesn't need resistance or accuracy, some attack. So did build a more damage-based Kaimar, Kaimar to try and get the waves down and also get the boss down harder. I don't think the accuracy to land the sleep on that second wave would really help because we hit him right after it. So that's the downside of his sleep debuff is if you hit them, they're going to wake them up anyway. So anyway, those are the builds, masteries, and how the team works. So all right, let's try it one more time. Wave 1 down, 16 seconds. Sure be nice if they attack the Riho. So Mikage uses that ability before Riho would even put it up. So that's actually not that helpful. Riho did do an attack there, and Kaimar can take the hit, so Riho getting a turns doesn't seem problematic. Once we hit the boss, this does look pretty smooth. Alright, getting some Giant Slayer hits in there. Alright, down goes the boss. 127, new best time. Running smoothly. Good news. So definitely a good run. So definitely a great outcome. I think it's a takeover that is a success. I hope what you picked up from this was some learnings on how do we look at the team suggestions, how do we follow the team optimizer for those suggestions for what builds are on there, if you've got the ability to see that, and how do you model a team. And then I think it's helpful. It's a really helpful tool to be able to get from I have the champs and I have the gear, but I don't know how to beat a certain piece of content. So it's something I use a lot, not just in a takeover, but it's in my own account. I get new champs. I'll go into the team suggestions and play around in areas and just see, hey, where in the game do I think I can be faster from that? How do I see what type of teams were in there, what kinds of builds were there, and ability to see that, and then to come in and make a team work successful like this. So, happy from a takeover perspective. He was really happy to get Fire Knight into a place then that can run fast and efficient and be able to get to the benefits of Fire Knight 10 rewards, CVC points when you run that and run it at a faster pace. So, any questions or comments or things that you think we could have done better in this? Please comment below. And if you find the content in this channel helpful, I definitely, I'm just getting so close to the 500 subs. I definitely would appreciate any subs that you can give me or any likes to the video. Thank you.